I love working with first-time homebuyers. They are excited and eager and usually open to learning about the process. But when it's time to write that first offer, the excitement can make it tempting to quickly tap through the documents on your phone and sign whatever your agent tells you to. Please do not do that. In Pennsylvania, we use a 14-page contract to make an official offer on a home. Its full name is the Standard Agreement for the Sale of Real Estate, or Form ASR, although most people simply call it the AOS, or Agreement of Sale. Not every part will apply to every home purchase, but there are several sections that every buyer and seller should understand. My name is Cynthia with Cinderella Sells and the Living in Eastern PA channel, where we talk about living, working, playing, relocating, selling, and buying in the Lehigh Valley and beyond. So I write offers for buyers all the time, and I also review offers with my sellers. Whether you're buying or selling, you need to understand what this contract says. Once an offer is accepted, it becomes a legally binding agreement. It sets the price, financing, inspections, deadlines, responsibilities, and protections for both sides. So let's begin with page 1. This page identifies the buyers and the sellers. The legal names must be correct, and every owner who needs to sell the property must be included. This can become more complicated when a home is owned by a trust, an estate, a company, or several family members like siblings. Page 1 also identifies the property itself. It lists the address, the municipality, county, school district, and tax parcel number. This is important because an address may include more than one parcel of land. For example, if the seller owns the house and the vacant lot next door, both parcels should be listed if both are included in the sale. The rest of page 1 explains who each real estate agent represents. In most transactions, the buyer has an agent who represents the buyer, and the seller has a listing agent who represents the seller. An agent's job is to protect and advise the person that they represent. So if you're a buyer speaking with the listing agent, remember that the listing agent works for the seller, even if that agent is friendly, answers your questions, or shows you the house. Sometimes the buyer's agent and the seller's agent work for the same brokerage. When two different agents from that brokerage represent the two sides, it's called designated agency. Each agent still represents their own client. Dual agency is different. Dual agency happens when the same agent represents both the buyer and the seller. Both parties must be told about this and agree to it. A dual agent has to remain neutral and cannot give one side advice that would harm the other side. Buyers and sellers initial the bottom of the page to confirm the agency relationships. Page 2 begins with the financial terms. Section 1 states the purchase price and explains how the buyer plans to pay for the home. Part of the price may come from a mortgage, part may be the deposit, and the rest may be paid at settlement. Buyers should understand that the purchase price is not the same as the total amount of money they will need. They may also need money for the down payment, closing costs, taxes, insurance, and lender fees. And it's easy for sellers to simply look at the price, but a slightly lower offer with strong financing and fewer conditions may be better than a higher offer with weak financing and a large seller assist. Section 2 covers the buyer's deposit, also called earnest money. The agreement states how much the buyer will deposit, when it is due, whether there will be a second deposit, and who will hold the money. The deposit is not the same as a down payment. The earnest money deposit, or EMD, is the buyer's way of showing the seller, I am serious about buying this house. It's money that the buyer puts down after the offer is accepted, and it's held in escrow until settlement. At settlement, it's credited toward the money the buyer owes. If the agreement is properly canceled under one of the buyer's protections, the deposit may be returned. If the buyer walks away without a valid reason, the deposit is probably at risk. Section 3 covers money that the seller may agree to pay towards the buyer's agent fee or closing costs. This can help the buyer bring less money to settlement, but it also lowers the seller's financial proceeds. For example, an offer of $410,000 with a $10,000 seller assist is similar to a straight $400,000 offer from the seller's point of view. Section 4 states the settlement date and when the buyer will receive possession of the home. Possession usually transfers at settlement unless the parties agree to something different in writing. If the seller needs to stay in the home after settlement, parties should agree to use a post-settlement possession addendum or agreement. That agreement should cover rent, insurance, responsibility for damage, and the date the seller must leave. This should never be handled with only a handshake. Section 5 explains that the dates and the deadlines in the contract are firm. Many deadlines begin on the execution date, which is the date that the agreement has been accepted by everyone, buyers and sellers. Don't assume that weekends and holidays don't count. And don't assume that a phone call extends a deadline. If the buyer has 10 days to complete inspections, the buyer must act within those 10 days. Missing a deadline can cause the buyer to lose an important protection. Section 6 identifies the property zoning or approved use. Buyers should make sure that the home can legally be used the way they intend. This matters if they plan to run a business, rent the home, create an apartment, or use it as a short-term rental. Just because an apartment already exists does not mean that the municipality has approved it to use as a rental. Section 7 explains what stays with the house. Items attached to the home called fixtures are usually included unless the agreement says otherwise. Movable items called personal property should be listed if the buyer expects them to remain. Common problems include refrigerators, washers and dryers, chandeliers, mirrors, sheds, hot tubs, TV brackets, propane tanks, and smart home equipment. Never rely only on a listing photo or a verbal promise. If the seller plans to take the dining room chandelier, that should be written into the agreement. Likewise, if a seller plans to leave the pool table, the piano, or that ratty old couch, it should be written in here. Section 8 is one of the most important sections because it covers the buyer's mortgage. At the beginning of this section, the buyer chooses one of 3 options. Option 1 is not applicable. This is used for a true cash purchase. This means that the buyer will not use a mortgage and is paying cash for the home. Option 2 is waived. The buyer may still use a mortgage, but the purchase is not protected by a mortgage contingency. If the loan is denied and the buyer can't complete the purchase another way, the buyer may be in default and could lose their deposit. Option 3 is elected. This is used for almost all financed purchases. It means the buyer's obligation to purchase is protected by a mortgage contingency, as long as the buyer follows the rules and deadlines in the agreement. The mortgage section lists the loan amount, the loan type, interest rate limit, loan term, and mortgage commitment date. The buyer must apply on time, give the lender the requested documents, cooperate with the process, and avoid making financial decisions that could hurt the loan. A pre-approval is not final approval, and buyers need to understand that. The lender still needs to review the buyer's income, their employment, their credit, bank accounts, and sometimes even the property itself. For sellers, the buyer's financing matters because some loans are easier or less risky than others. The mortgage commitment date is the deadline for the buyer to show that the lender has approved the loan. If that proof is not provided, the seller may have the right to cancel. The appraisal is also important. Suppose the buyer agrees to pay $400,000, but the home only appraises for $385,000. This doesn't mean that the seller has to automatically lower the price. Depending on the agreement, the buyer may bring more cash, try to renegotiate, to move forward anyway, or to cancel. Sometimes the lender requires repairs before approving the loan. The seller may agree to make those repairs, or they could refuse, and the buyer then has to decide what to do before the deadline. An FHA or VA appraisal is not a home inspection and does not guarantee that the house is in good condition. Section 9 says the buyer must report a major financial change that could affect the purchase. This might include losing a job, changing jobs, buying a car, opening new credit, co-signing a loan, or taking on new debt. Section 10 covers information the seller provides about the property. This includes the water and sewer systems, restrictions on the land, assessments, permits, seller disclosure, and certain internet-connected devices. Buyers should not depend only on the seller's property disclosure. They should still complete inspections and research the property. For example, land enrolled in Pennsylvania's Clean and Green program may come with extra costs if the buyer changes how that land is used. Section 11 explains what happens when a buyer waives a contingency or doesn't use it before the deadline. A contingency gives the buyers time to investigate something and may give the buyer a right to negotiate or cancel. Waiving inspections can make an offer stronger, especially when several buyers are competing for the same home. It gives the seller more confidence that the buyer will not request repairs or cancel because of an inspection. But waiving inspections also creates a lot more risk for the buyer. If a serious problem is found after settlement, it's on the buyer now to repair or replace. Buyers should never waive inspections without understanding that risk. Section 12 lists the inspections the buyer may choose. These can include a general home inspection, termite inspection, radon test, well and water testing, septic inspection, zoning review, insurance review, property survey, and a lead-based paint inspection. General home inspection does not include every possible test. Radon, septic, water, mold, sewer lines, and property boundaries may require separate inspections. An inspection contingency also does not force the seller to repair everything. It gives the buyer choices after learning about the condition of the home. Section 13 explains those choices. After the inspections, the buyer may accept the property. They may cancel the agreement if the contract allows it, or send the seller a written request for repairs, a credit, or another solution. The seller can accept the request, reject it, or make a different offer. If the parties are still negotiating when the deadline is approaching, they should extend the deadline in writing. Talking about the problem does not automatically extend the contract. Section 14 covers title, which simply means the legal ownership of the property. A title search checks the public records to make sure that the seller has the legal right to sell the home and looks for anything that could affect the buyer's ownership, such as an unpaid mortgage, tax lien, judgment, an easement, or another person's claim to the property. The buyer is also encouraged to purchase owner's title insurance. The lender's title policy protects the lender. The owner's policy protects the buyer. Section 15 covers municipal requirements, code violations, assessments, and use and occupancy inspections. Some municipalities require repairs before a property can be sold. The agreement explains how the buyer and seller will handle those issues. Section 16 applies to condominiums and planned communities. The seller may need to provide association rules, budgets, fees, assessments, and other documents. And buyers, you should read these carefully. You may discover a large upcoming assessment, a rental restriction, or rules that you don't want to live under. Section 17 warns that property taxes can change. The current tax bill is not a promise that the taxes will always remain the same. Section 18 says the seller must maintain the property until settlement. If something included in the sale breaks before settlement, the seller can't automatically make it the buyer's problem. The agreement explains how the issue will be handled. Sections 19 through 25 cover several shorter topics. These include home warranties, transferring the agreement to another buyer, Pennsylvania law, foreign sellers, Megan's Law notices, and the importance of putting every promise in writing. If the seller promises to leave a riding mower, make sure the mower is listed in the agreement. Section 26 explains what happens to the buyer's deposit if the agreement is canceled, disputed, or someone fails to follow the contract. Section 26G specifically, which we always check, says that if the buyer backs out without a valid reason, the seller may be allowed to keep the deposit instead of suing for more money. We do not enter a transaction expecting it to be canceled, but this agreement explains what may happen if the buyer does not follow through. Section 27 says most disputes must go through mediation before either side files a lawsuit. Mediation gives the buyer and the seller a chance to reach an agreement with the help of a neutral person. Section 28 contains a release. In simple terms, if the buyer accepts the property or misses a deadline, the buyer may give up the right to make certain claims later. This is another reason that deadlines are so important. Section 29 discusses the Pennsylvania Real Estate Recovery Fund. This fund may help repay a consumer who wins a court case against a licensed real estate professional for certain dishonest actions, but cannot collect the money from that person. Section 30 explains how official notices under the agreement can be sent, including when notice given to a buyer's or a seller's agent counts as notice to that person. Section 31 simply says the section titles are there to help organize the contract. If a title seems different from the detailed wording underneath it, the detailed wording is what matters. Section 32 lists any addendums and special terms that are a part of the offer. These may include an appraisal addendum, a home sale contingency, a short sale addendum, or another special agreement. An addendum can change the meaning of the main contract, so it must also be read carefully. Finally, the agreement includes initials, signatures, and dates. Never sign an agreement that still has important blanks. Make sure the price, the dates, deposits, inspections, exclusions, and addenda are complete. Once the offer is accepted and acceptance is communicated, it becomes an executed contract. If the seller changes a term before signing, for instance, the settlement date, that's usually a counteroffer, and the buyer must decide whether to accept the change. The most important thing to remember is that an agreement of sale covers much more than the purchase price. It explains the financing, deposits, inspections, appraisal, title, deadlines, settlement, and what may happen if someone does not perform. Nearly every important protection has a deadline. Verbal promises should be put in writing. An inspection does not guarantee that the seller will make repairs. A mortgage pre-approval is not final approval. And the buyer's deposit is not automatically lost or returned. It depends on what the agreement says and whether the parties followed it. Every transaction is different. The terms that work for one buyer, seller, or property may not be right for another. And this video is for general education and is not legal advice. Anyone who needs legal advice about a contract should speak with a Pennsylvania real estate attorney. Whether you're preparing to make an offer or reviewing an offer on your home, you should never feel pressured to sign something you do not understand. Having an experienced realtor is not only about opening doors or putting a sign in the yard. It's about helping you understand your choices, deadlines, risks, and responsibilities from the beginning of the transaction through settlement. If you're buying or selling in the Lehigh Valley or anywhere in Eastern PA, I would love to help you move forward with experienced local guidance and a clear understanding of everything you're signing. Contact me below and we can chat.